All right, so let's jump right in. We're looking at all the latest and greatest in bioinformatics today, going straight to the source, pulling from things like News Medical, that RNA-seq blog, BioIT World, and we even have some stuff from Nature.com and some genomics conference scoops, keeping it fresh.
Always got to have the scoop.
That's crazy.
Yeah, exactly. So we're basically seeing how all these tools are being used by scientists, like tackling some of the biggest challenges out there, from cancer all the way to some of these rare diseases and stuff.
I'm seeing RNA sequencing everywhere. Is that like the hot new thing in bioinformatics these days?
Well, let me tell you, it's definitely got people talking. I mean, what's so cool about RNA sequencing is it lets scientists see which genes are basically like switched on in a cell.
Oh, wow.
At any given time, right? So you can see it's not just about the basic DNA blueprint. It's like a real-time view of what's happening.
Like it's alive.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
I was looking at the RNA-seq blog, and they had some really interesting examples on there. One study used it to look at gene regulation in Prader-Willi Syndrome, which is a rare disorder that, can cause all sorts of symptoms and stuff.
Yeah, and in that study, they were able to pinpoint specific genes that just weren't being regulated properly.
Wow.
Which is huge because it could lead to therapies that target those genes specifically.
Totally.
So that's really promising stuff.
Yeah. There was another one about cancer metastasis on there, too.
Oh, yeah.
And they used RNA sequencing to find the genes that were actually driving the spread of cancer cells.
Yeah. And they actually found a unique set of genes that were, like, super active in the cancers that were, the most aggressive, the ones that spread the most.
That's wild.
Yeah. And this kind of information is key, right? When you're trying to find new ways to stop the spread of cancer.
Oh, absolutely.
Or even reverse it, right?
Yeah.
So it's really important work they're doing there.
It also sounds like RNA sequencing is helping us to understand complex tissues better, too. There was a study on the blog that used single nucleus RNA sequencing to look at lung tissue.
Yeah. Like, think about your lungs, right? They've got all these different cell types working together.
Yeah.
And this technique lets researchers analyze each cell's gene activity individually within the lung. So we're getting a level of detail we never could before.
That's amazing.
Yeah. It's really going to change how we diagnose and treat lung diseases down the road.
It seems like the possibilities are pretty much endless. And it's not just happening in labs either. BioIT World was reporting that Oxford Nanopore.
Oh, right. The big sequencing guys?
Yeah. They're going to be presenting this new proteomics genomics approach at a healthcare conference.
Yeah, that's where it gets interesting. Because it's not just about the genes anymore. It's about figuring out the proteins they make.
Wow.
And this combo, proteomics and genomics, gives us this, like, much richer picture of what's going on,
At, like, the super tiny level.
Exactly, like the molecular level.
So how does this proteomics genomics approach work?
Okay, so basically they take their long-read sequencing technology, right, which analyzes, long stretches of DNA.
Okay.
They combine that with new ways of analyzing the proteins those DNA sequences make.
Oh, so cool.
So they can always see how changes in DNA end up changing how the proteins work, which gives us that more complete picture.
Oh, that makes sense.
Yeah, so it's like
connecting the blueprint to...
Exactly.
Yeah.
And, this has huge implications for understanding diseases and how we target them with new therapies. It's a big deal.
For sure. So I'm also seeing a lot about AI and machine learning in these sources.
Yeah.
Seems like everyone's really into it right now.
And it's not just hype.
What?
These technologies are already making a real difference in bioinformatics.
Interesting.
Think about it. They can analyze massive data sets, and they can spot patterns that humans might miss completely.
Wow.
Which is so valuable in a field where you have so much data to work with.
Absolutely. I saw a few really interesting examples on Nature.com. One study used machine learning to predict post-acute pancreatitis diabetes mellitus.
Okay, so breaking that down, basically,
it's a mouthful.
They made this algorithm that can tell if someone who's had really bad pancreatitis will go on to develop diabetes.
Oh, so they can predict.
Yeah, early prediction.
Yeah.
Which is crucial for getting the right treatment and preventing complications.
That's amazing.
It really is.
Another study on Nature.com used machine learning to analyze cervical balance in patients who've had scoliosis surgery.
Right. Like, imagine how complex the spine is, right?
Oh, yeah.
By looking at X-rays with machine learning, they can assess how balanced the neck is way more accurately than traditional methods. So better surgical outcomes, fewer complications,
That's great. And it's not just about diagnosing and predicting either.
Yeah.
I saw another Nature.com study that used AI to make like photorealistic portraits of people with rare genetic disorders.
That's so cool.
Yeah.
This is where AI really shines. They could create images of what someone might look like based on their genes.
Wow.
Which can help diagnose disorders and also help families, understand what to expect.
These applications are just incredible.
They are.
But I also wonder if there are downsides to relying on AI so much in healthcare.
Oh, for sure. That's a super important question.
Yeah.
And we need to be careful about how we develop and use these technologies.
Yeah.
But right now, I think we should focus on all the incredible advancements they're bringing to the field.
Absolutely. Speaking of advancements, News Medical had this fascinating article about a breakthrough in osteosarcoma research. It's
bone cancer.
a type of bone cancer, Mostly affects young people.
Scary stuff.
Yeah.
What'd they find?
Well, the researchers found this new mutation mechanism that drives the cancer's growth. And this finding could lead to way more effective targeted treatments for this disease.
That's huge.
Right. Such hopeful news for the patients and families going through it.
Absolutely. And it just shows you how important it is to keep doing research in this area.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
It really emphasizes how understanding the genetics can pave the way for better therapies.
Okay, one last piece of news before we move on.
Okay.
Bio-IT World was highlighting some research
Okay.
that's looking at muscle tissue
All right.
to understand chronic fatigue syndrome and long COVID.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, those are two conditions that have been so hard to diagnose and treat.
Very tricky. Yeah.
And this research indicates there might be a biological basis for these conditions in the muscles.
That could be big.
Yeah, groundbreaking.
Yeah.
It's encouraging to see that. Scientists are really looking into these complex conditions.
Absolutely.
Gives hope for better treatments in the future.
It really does. It reminds us that even with these tough challenges, research keeps moving forward, looking for those answers and new possibilities.
For sure.
Yep.
We were just talking about how scientists are looking at muscle tissue to understand chronic fatigue syndrome and long COVID. It's pretty amazing how they're using these tools, to tackle these conditions that have been so mysterious for so long.
Yeah, it really shows you the power of bioinformatics to unlock these new understandings of the human body. And it's not just about these really complex diseases either. There's so much buzz around using these tools to make genetic diagnosis way more accurate and efficient.
Yeah. News Medical had an article about using what they called long reads to diagnose rare diseases. Can you remind us what long reads are and why everyone's so excited about them?
Sure. So basically, the traditional way of sequencing DNA breaks it up into these small pieces.
Okay.
And that can make it hard to put the whole picture together, especially if you're looking for complex variations.
Right.
But with long reads, scientists can sequence longer stretches of DNA at once.
So it's like instead of having this blurry, fragmented picture,
exactly.
you get this high-definition panorama.
That's a great way to put it. It's a much clearer view of the whole genetic landscape.
Yeah.
And for rare diseases, they often involve these complex variations that you might miss with shorter reads.
Right.
So this technology could be huge. It can help pinpoint the exact genetic cause of a disease, which then leads to more targeted treatments and maybe even cures.
It's really incredible. Makes you realize how much we still don't know about our own DNA.
Oh, totally.
And how it affects our health.
Absolutely. Every new discovery gets us closer to understanding how the human body works, all the intricate details.
Yeah.
And it's not even just about individual genes. It's about how they all work together and interact with, the environment and everything.
It's like we're putting together this giant puzzle.
Right, yeah. I like that analogy.
Yeah.
Yeah, and we're slowly but surely figuring it out.
Speaking of puzzles, there was this other study in News Medical that caught my eye. They used bioinformatics to look into the origins of the Black Death.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, the plague.
That's a fascinating one.
That ravaged Europe back in the 14th century.
Wow. So they used bioinformatics to go back in time like that?
Yeah, the researchers analyzed DNA from plague victims.
Wow.
And they were able to trace it back to Central Asia.
Amazing. And what's cool is they could even pinpoint a specific region where they think the plague jumped from rodents to humans.
It's wild how we can use these tools to, look back in time and solve these historical mysteries. And it really shows you, like, how connected human health is to the environment.
For sure. It reminds us that diseases don't just, exist on their own. They're shaped by our history, our interaction with other species, even, global travel patterns and things.
So, it all comes back to how important it is to use bioinformatics to, understand and address the challenges we face.
Right.
It's not just about finding cures for diseases.
Right.
It's about using these tools to improve global health.
Exactly. Harnessing these technologies to build a healthier, more sustainable future for everyone.
Okay, one last thing before we wrap up this section. There was a study on nature.com. Researchers were able to study ferroptosis-related biomarkers in vitiligo.
Okay. Break that down for me.
Yeah.
What is all that?
So ferroptosis is like a type of cell death linked to iron buildup. And vitiligo is that condition where the skin loses its pigment.
Right.
They found specific biomarkers related to ferroptosis in people with vitiligo.
So they're getting closer to figuring out the mechanisms behind vitiligo.
Right. And it could lead to new treatment options.
Yeah, exactly. It's a great example of how bioinformatics connects these cellular processes with actual diseases.
Yeah.
And that's what I love about this field, It's always pushing the boundaries, always finding these new insights, these new possibilities.
It's pretty amazing, all the ways that researchers are using bioinformatics to make these huge breakthroughs in healthcare. I mean, from tackling cancer to figuring out these rare diseases. It seems like the sky's the limit.
Yeah, I mean, the speed of innovation is just mind-blowing. And I think with everything moving so fast, it's important to kind of step back and think about the big picture, the implications of all these tools.
Yeah, that makes sense. We were talking earlier about how Oxford Nanopore is going to present their proteomics genomics approach at that healthcare conference. It seems like this whole combining different fields thing is a big trend in bioinformatics.
Absolutely. As we learn more about the genome and the proteome, which is all the proteins in an organism, we can start to see how connected they really are.
So it's not just about analyzing DNA sequences anymore, right? It's about seeing how those sequences actually become proteins.
Exactly. Proteins are the workers of our cells,
Yeah.
So by combining genomic and proteomic data, researchers can get this way more complete view of everything.
Yeah.
Like how the cells work, disease mechanisms, how to target treatments.
It's like we're going from those flat blueprints to a 3D model of the whole body.
Yeah, that's a great way to put it.
Yeah, with all its complexity.
And with this more complete view, we can start to address health challenges in a more precise and personalized way. Imagine tailoring treatments to not just a person's genes, but also to their specific proteins.
Wow, that's pretty mind-blowing.
Right.
But even with all this amazing stuff happening, it's important to remember that bioinformatics is still a pretty young field.
That's true. And, like with any new powerful technology, there are always challenges, right?
Sure.
And ethical stuff to figure out. But we can't ignore the potential benefits. They're too big.
I totally agree. And I think that's a great place to wrap things up.
Yeah.
We've talked about so much today, from the newest stuff in RNA sequencing to how AI is changing healthcare.
Totally.
And it's obvious that bioinformatics is shaping the future of medicine.
I think so, too. It's been great talking about all of this.
Yeah, it has.
And for everyone listening, I hope you stay curious, stay informed, and keep thinking about how we can use these tools in a responsible way. You never know what amazing discoveries are coming next.
Absolutely. Thanks for joining us in this deep dive into the world of bioinformatics. We'll be back soon to explore even more cutting-edge science and technology.